Hello everybody, I am Jake, aka Bomber, and I welcome you into another Jobber Radio video. We're going to be talking about these two DVDs right here. We are cracking open the Deathmatch Archive to talk about two spin-off Tournament of Death tournaments here. One from 2009 and one from 2007. We're talking TOD Fast Forward and TOD Rewind. So unlike some of my other videos, I've actually watched both of these events and a lot of these matches time and time again. So I'm familiar with these almost front and back. But for some of you out there, this might be your first time. Maybe you've seen a match or two, or maybe a highlight here or there from one of these tournaments or both. But we're covering the entire tournament, each one of them here in this video. So we're going to have a full grasp of what all was going down in CZW in the mid to late 2000s. Now, throughout the years, CZW has had numbered tournaments, which I refer to as, the mainline Tournament of Deaths. And of course, we have the spin-offs and a couple international ones. But if you want to go back and watch the numbered or mainline Tournament of Deaths completely ranked, breaking down match by match, I actually spent in total probably, when I was started from the beginning to the end, over a year making this video. It's already on the channel. Go search all Tournament of Deaths ranked. It's already there. These two tournaments are not in that video. So we are covering them for the first time right here on this channel. Like I said, these are the spinoffs. So let's get into it. First of all, Tournament of Death Fast Forward. This was the 2007, September 15th. I'm going to get into a little bit of a backstory because there were numbered tournaments on these same years in 2007 and 2009. So why in the world would CZW have two other Tournament of Deaths in that same year? So TOD Fast Forward, like I said, took place in September, and just a couple months earlier, Drake Younger won the 6th TOD, and I actually had that ranked in that other video in the top 10. Little spoiler for you if you haven't already seen it. But just 2 months after Drake won TOD 6, in August, he would challenge Brain Damage for the CZW Ultraviolent Underground Championship at the show titled Dishonorable Conduct. It was a pretty memorable main event, but the match ended in a no contest. We had Zandig come out because the two referees couldn't agree on who won the match, whether it was Brain Damage or Drake. There was a little bit of drama going on, but just between you and me, it was very clearly Brain Damage, by the way. I mean, just look at this right here. But regardless, Zandig decided to strip Brain Damage of the title since there was no winner. And right at the end of that squabble, he announced that the next month in September, there would be the first ever Ultraviolent Underground tournament to crown the new champion because he just vacated it. So there wasn't a whole lot of build up here. There wasn't a whole lot of backstory behind why we got this tournament. And, between you and me, it felt a little rushed, but that's how we got there. And that is why we are going into Tournament of Death Fast Forward just a couple months, like I said, after TOD 6. But yes, both Drake Younger and Brain Damage will be in this tournament. So let's just get to it. Let's break down and look at TOD Fast Forward. On September 15th, 2007, at Bulldozer Saloon in Smyrna, Delaware, CZW would host its first and only Ultra-Violent Underground tournament, aka the Tournament of Death Fast Forward. The Delaware Assassin would have the unfortunate task of facing a very angry Brain Damage in the first round. Now, I've seen a lot of squash matches and one-sided beatings in my time, but dear Lord, look at some of these brutal-looking punches here from Brain Damage.
Oh, he wants a punch?
For a split second, the Delaware Assassin would get a fury of strikes in, and he was even able to use a couple light tubes and a thumbtack sandal, but that was about it. He was a literal punching bag for the 6 minutes and change this match lasted. And if you don't believe me, just listen to this.
Oh, shit! He might have just broke his fucking jaw.
I'm not sure how, but he was able to get back up onto his feet, only to be slammed outside of the ring through a light tube contraption, which looked really good, by the way. Yeah, Brain Damage easily moves on to the finals and takes one step closer to getting that title back that was stripped from him coming into this tournament. In the second match, we would see two CZW newcomers in their first year with the promotion. In fact, this would be Danny Demonto's third match for CZW, period. Scotty Vortex, on the other hand, already held the CZW Junior Heavyweight title, losing it to Danny Havoc just a week prior to this match right here. At this point in time, Danny wasn't entrenched in the deathmatch world and would actually kind of badmouth it here, saying that he showed up to wrestle. After a little bit of that wrestling, he quickly got cocky, and even quicker, he was busted open thanks to a thumbtack bat. That would be followed up with a baseball slide into a chair in the corner. So there was this weird dynamic here where Scotty Vortex kept being a dick to the fans, while Demonto appeared to be the chicken shit, so the crowd really didn't want either one of these guys to win this one. I do love this line from Demonto after a crucifix drop onto some tubes.
You had 250 pounds on top of his.
It was followed by a "you still suck" chant, but it makes me laugh every single time. We got some risky high flying out of Danny, and I think he got a little too greedy here because he then set up a ladder, went up to the top rope again, only for Vortex to give him a sunset flip powerbomb through it. And if you look, his arm is actually pinned under that ladder too. Just gnarly stuff. If that wasn't enough, Scotty rolled Demonto back into the ring and came off the top rope, driving both of his knees straight into his chest. After getting back in control, Danny once again went up to the top rope, but yet again it cost him here. This time it would actually cost him the match. Scotty would counter the hog splash with a Spanish fly onto a ton of light tubes. Just an awesome looking finish here. Yeah, better luck next time, Demonto, or I guess Demento, which he was referred to on commentary throughout most of this thing. So out next would be diehard Dustin Lee to take on the current CZW Junior Heavyweight Champion, Danny Havoc. So this match was snake bit from the start. It looked like Danny was a little out of sync here, leading to some early missteps. Just a couple minutes into this match, Danny would bring Dustin Lee down with a head scissors takedown, but it looks like he rolled right through some light tubes and they completely sliced a giant chunk out of his left shoulder blade. Danny would actually hit a dive to the outside, not seeing how bad the cut was on Dustin, who quickly rolled back into the ring where Danny jumped on top of him to pin him. The cut is so bad, I do actually have to censor some of this here, so I did include it in my top 10 most ultra-violent moments in CZW history video, so go check that out for a little bit more details and a little more footage. Finishing off the first round, JC Bailey would return to CZW for the first time in over a year to take on Drake Younger, who just won TOD6 like 2 months ago. These two spent the first part of this match countering and evading each other, and even went for a few quick early pin attempts, all building up to finally bringing in some light tubes into the mix. And boy, when they did, the floodgates opened. Now, more counters led to a cutter that panicked Younger into thinking he just lost his nipple like he almost did back at TOD6. Luckily though, he was fine, but his luck quickly ran out when JC landed this double stomp right after. Things were just getting started because with a little assistance from the ref, Drake taped some light tubes onto JC's back and planted him down onto the mat with an ultra-violent running power slam. He followed that up with a picture-perfect frog splash, and to keep the momentum in his favor, he countered JC once again, sending him flying through a pane of glass with a half Nelson suplex. Just when Drake was seconds away from winning, out came DJ Hyde to deliver a devastating-looking shadow driver. He would pull Bailey over on top of Younger to steal the win right away from him. Now, this was a solid match. It was shaping up to be a classic between two deathmatch legends. Even with a weird interference finish, it was still overall very good. Alright, so it is main event time. There would be a 4-way elimination match to see who would leave the new CZW Ultra-Violent Underground Champion. So looking at the competitors, we have Danny Havoc, who took pretty much no damage in his first round match. Brain damage destroyed the Hellaware Assassin, so he didn't take much either. Then that leaves Scotty Vortex and JC Bailey with major disadvantages because they had to work a lot harder to get where they are here. Though I think this flash from a girl in the front row helped raise JC's spirits quite a bit. And apparently it helped rejuvenate him so much that he brought her back over to the center of the front row for a little, one more time type deal. On commentary though, I think Zandig said it best.
All right, enough of the titties. The match is on. Sit down, Greg. Speak for yourself, John.
Okay, so getting back to that action, Scotty and JC got things going inside of the ring, while Brain Damage just pulverized Danny Havoc on the outside. Damage was so angry that this table did not break that he made sure Danny went through it on the second attempt. So you remember how I just said Havoc took little to no damage in that first round, right? Well, he took all of the damage here in very rapid fire succession. With all four of these guys in the match, eventually Chaos just started to kind of take over here. Bailey was seen kicking tubes into Brain Damage's back, while Vortex was kicking tubes into Havoc's skull, and he was also dropping Danny onto his skull. We then got shotgun drop kicks into the corner covered in light tubes, with several more light tube shots on the outside. Scotty was able to counter Havoc on the top rope, pulling him down through a barbed wire table with a sick-looking Spanish fly. The crowd was just eating this matchup as JC and Danny had to join forces to take out both Vortex and Brain Damage, who were both in Maven Bentley's pocket. In the middle of all of this, they would set 4 chairs up in the middle of the ring to have a big slugfest, which, if you don't know who Brain Damage is, this is a really bad idea. Both Bailey and Havoc found out quick, and I'm not too sure if he legit broke both of their jaws during this match. JC Bailey would be the first to be eliminated though, after 2 both beautiful and deadly looking power bombs from Brain Damage. Havoc was then able to eliminate Scotty Vortex with his General Order 24 in the middle of the ring. Down to just Brain Damage and Havoc now, some high-risk moves on the outside both did and did not work out for Danny, but this corkscrew moonsault certainly didn't. That left Danny Havoc open to be teed off on by Damage, and if those punches earlier didn't break his jaw, these did. God, with poor Havoc knocked out cold here, the ultraviolent Terminator would pick up the 3-count victory. Now a 2-time CZW Ultraviolent Underground Champion, Brain Damage did exactly what he said he was going to do, walk away from this tournament with the title back in his possession, or Maven Bentley's, but either way, he got the job done. I felt so bad for Danny Havoc there. You could see in the backstage little promo afterwards, his jaws were swollen. He looked like he couldn't talk. He got the absolute trash beat out of him there and punched to death by Brain Damage, which, by the way, if you know me, you've been around the channel for a while, I am a pretty big Brain Damage fan. Been a big fan of his, rest in peace to Brain Damage. I think this was definitely, this little whole time frame right here, definitely Brain Damage's peak. To me, that's my opinion as a fan. I believe this was Brain Damage at his peak in this little time frame. But either way, regardless, pretty decent tournament. I know it's not super well regarded. I think the main event is definitely the best match on the show, followed by Drake and JC Bailey. The other matches, they were fine. There was a couple squash matches in there. Of course, the whole unfortunate thing with Die Hard Dustin Lee sucks. But again, if you want to see more of that, a little bit more detail, I have a top 10 most ultra-violent moments that actually does land in there because you get to see the backstage footage. Some of it's censored, but you can see the big cut. It's gnarly, absolutely disgusting. So while TOD Fast Forward felt a little forced, I think the reasoning behind TOD Rewind, much better reasoning. The whole controversial finish, there was a winner, but there really wasn't a winner. And then Thumbtack Jack would put the TOD title on the line against, DJ Hyde later on, and then DJ Hyde won it. It got muddy, it got dirty, it got messy. So we needed this tournament, TOD Rewind, to determine an overall real deal winner in 2009. But at the time at TOD 8, when Nick Gage got rushed to the back, the chaos, took place in the ring. Moxley came out and got destroyed. Then, everybody else came out. Zandig came out. DJ Hyde came out and got involved as well. For a minute, it looked like there was going to be a battle royal. It was going to take place. And DJ got tossed out of the ring. People thought Zandig won for a split second there. But instead, he did hand the trophy to Thumbtack Jack, crowning him the winner. And since this is and was the biggest tournament of the year, you can't really end on that sour note. You just can't do that to the fans, even though I understood. I wasn't there that day, but I watched everybody, kind of understood. But CZW did announce the Make Good tournament, which was Rewind, and it did feature a lot of names from the TOD 8 as well as some newcomers, which there's some big newcomer names in here that are going to surprise you as we get into this. Pretty good stuff. But like I said, very good reasoning behind this tournament. I think I've talked about it enough. Let's get into TOD Rewind. Let's go. Combat Zone Wrestling would return to the ultra-violent underground in Townsend, Delaware on October 25th, 2009, just 4 months after Tournament of Death 8. That is where Sami Callihan would enter Tournament of Death for his first and only time to challenge the ultra-violent underground champion, a man who he had quite a rivalry with at the time, Danny Havoc. Alright, I'm going to try my best not to comment on Danny's hair in this one, but wow, these two brought a lot of intensity shown in every strike and every scary suplex. No, this wasn't the most bloody TOD match by any means, but they did a great job mixing in some technical, high-flying, and high-impact maneuvers with that ultra-violence mixed into. Sami tried forcing Havoc to tap out, but when that didn't work, he promptly planted him face-first into a pile of glass. Then Callihan decided to showcase some of his underrated strength, but it still wasn't enough to put the champ away. Finally, Danny was able to get some offense in after countering a headlock driver by slamming Sami down into one of those Caribbean pits of death. This General Order 24 should have put an end to the match, but of course, Joe Gacy from Sami's Switchblade Conspiracy pulled the ref out before the 3 count. With that distraction, Sami pulled out a taser, looking to use it on the champ, but his plan backfired in a big way. Danny then tried to superplex Sami out onto this barbed wire light tube contraption, but then his plan would also backfire in a much bigger way. The champ found a way to battle back in the ring to go for one more General Order 24, but Sami reversed it with one of the sickest headlock drivers you were ever going to see. Yeah, no doubt about it, that is it. We have a brand new ultra-violent underground champion as Sami Callihan advances. The third member of the Switchblade Conspiracy would be up next as Jon Moxley was set to fight the man who officially, but also kind of unofficially, won TOD 8 after Nick Gage's gruesome incident. That would be Thumbtack Jack. And I'm going to tell you right now, Thumbtack Jack was loved by these fans and found himself a heavy fan favorite walking into this Four Corners of Hell dog collar match. The chain came into play early and often, as you would expect, but it would be Moxley who drew that first blood. Moxley thought he was slick introducing a box of Legos into the match, but Jack quickly made him rethink those decisions. We also got a fun back and forth here where Moxley would hit a Uranagi onto a pile of mouse traps, but then Jack would hold him down, snapping those traps onto each of his fingers. But he then took a slap across the face, sending all of those traps just flying. Moxley would then back Thumbtack Jack into a corner and shoot a staple directly into his tongue and follow that up with a textbook DDT. But don't worry though, Jack would later get revenge by stapling his mask onto Moxley's face and then just rip it off. While John was on the ring apron, Thumbtack Jack would tie his hands together with this other chain, leaving him completely defenseless. And that is where he drove several needles down into the skull of his opponent and then called for a cinder block. As he drew it back looking to strike, Moxley quickly surrendered, forfeiting the match, and I don't know, this may be the only forfeit in TOD history right here. No surprise here, but the crowd was left booing, but Moxley, he didn't care. He kept his skull intact while Thumbtack Jack will be moving on to the next round. In the third match, Masada would compete in his first deathmatch tournament for CZW, and his opponent would be Cult Fiction's ultra-violent Terminator, Brain Damage. Now, 99% of the time, you aren't going to find somebody who can trade shots with Brain Damage, but ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, Masada is that 1%. After laying a bloody Brain Damage out across this ladder, Masada went for a senton, but nobody was home, and Masada found himself right in the front row of the crowd. There was this scary moment though when Masada was whipped into the ropes and took a cowbell to the chest. Watch Masada land right on his neck awkwardly here. There were some solid slams here, but the highlights were of course the vicious and deadly strikes that would concuss any normal human being. But the end would come when Masada blocked being shoved down into a chair and countered damage with a Death Valley driver, completely flattening said chair. This was only Masada's second match in CZW, so at the time this was considered an upset, even though he did win IWA Mid-South's King of the Death matches this same year. To finish off the first round, we would be treated to a doozy as Nick Gage faced off against John Zandig for the very last time in their careers. And in less than a minute into the match, Gage's body was chucked into this pane of glass set up in the corner. After collecting himself on the outside, Gage jumped back into the ring and drove Zandig through 2 more panes of glass back to back, not giving the Icon any time to think. Nick wasted no time standing on Zandig's head, driving his forehead down into that broken glass. Next thing you know, Zandig was thrown ribs first into this huge light tube tower, but that wouldn't stop him from scooping Gage up and tossing him down into that same glass with a body slam. He showed that he still has that strength in him by flipping Nick up with ease and planting him down onto 2 steel chairs. A superplex was next on the menu as Gage was kind of starting to get manhandled here. And that would only become more evident as Gage was shot out of the ring to crash through a table and several light tubes. Yeah, guys, the King was in trouble here. But it would take just one surprise light tube shot for Nick to get back into this thing. With Dewey Donovan holding a bundle of tubes in front of Zandig's head, we would bear witness to one of the best boot scrapes ever to be executed. It would take just a choke breaker to finish Zandig off in what was thought of at the time as his last ever match. Now, we know that would not be the case down the road, but this would indeed be the last match between the King and the Icon. Round 2 would see Sami Callihan defend and just downright disrespect the CZW Ultra-Violent Underground Championship against Germany's own Thumbtack Jack. This would be a Transylvania casket death match, and yes, while Thumbtacks fittingly would be laying inside, these guys did their best to use this thing as a weapon itself. You know, I'm not sure how surprising this is, but the strikes both of these guys were throwing were downright amazing. I think Jack got rocked after one of these right here.
Oh my!
With light tubes laying across the casket opening, Callihan would deliver a springboard strike to Thumbtack Jack, knocking him down through the glass, placing him down into the casket. Sami would take just too long to get the lid closed, and he even ended up getting pulled down into the casket himself. And as you can see, Jack closed the lid with both of them inside, leaving referee Brett Lauderdale kind of clueless in he wouldn't call for the bell. They would finally both emerge with weapons in hand, Sami with his trusty switchblade, and Jack with his needles. We would get a headbutt here, and then Callihan would receive the needle directly into the top of his skull. You could see the panic set in as he tried to pull it out, but Thumbtack Jack drove the lid down onto his head and put an end to the match, meaning that he will be advancing to the final round, and in the process, he wins the Ultra-Violent Underground Championship. So would we see a TOD 8 Finals rematch between Thumbtack Jack and Nick Gage? I mean, that is why we are here after all, but first Gage would have to get past the newcomer, Masada. Classic wrestling would start things off, but you already know that the Ultra-Violence, it was right around the corner. And it was pretty clear that the entire crowd was pulling for Gage here, but that meant zero to Masada, who had no plans on being a stepping stone here in the semifinals. So, you remember how I said that boot scrape in the first round was one of the best ever? Well, watch and listen to this one. That was the momentum Gage needed because he started raining down light tubes and light bulbs on Masada, just wearing him down. It wouldn't last forever though. Masada would place a Halloween-themed bundle of light tubes in the middle of the ring and meet Gage up on the top rope, bringing him crashing down onto them. That actually wouldn't keep Nick down, and believe it or not, neither would this powerbomb onto a light tube log cabin. But then this is where the shocking moment happened. After dragging Gage through all this broken glass, Masada locked him into a Texas cloverleaf. For a moment, it looked like Nick was about to climb through all of this broken glass to get free, but instead, he passed out from the pain, and much to the fans' displeasure, Masada is headed to the finals. And speaking of those finals, Masada would now challenge Thumbtack Jack for that Ultra-Violent Underground Championship. I mean, he already pulled off 2 major upsets. Could it be 3? Well, this match would end up being a nearly 25-minute war where they would keep up a non-stop ultra-violent pace from the sound of the bell. After Masada was suplexed onto this barbed wire contraption, Jack would crack him with a small bundle of light tubes which actually sliced open the side of his neck. Thankfully, this wouldn't end up as bad as what happened to Nick Gage just a couple months prior, but nonetheless, it was a scary sight. All throughout this, each chair shot, each trash can shot, pretty much every shot to the head sounded just as brutal as the next. Hell, even the commentators were in danger as nowhere on the farm seemed to be off limits. Tell me if you think this right here shows how serious these guys were taking this.
Oh, what a shot!
All right, now how about this?
What is that?
It's a bat made of carpet strips.
Sweet Jesus.
And then came the cinder blocks. This slam right here was just the start. I mean, good God, look at this Russian leg sweep. Jack did get back into the match for a second with this monkey flip into a chair and a barbed wire 2x4, but then when going for a tornado DDT, Masada powered him up for one of the sickest looking power bombs to date. Somehow he got a shoulder up at 2, and just listen to this crowd.
Jesus.
He kicks out. He got his shoulder up. Now I see why these fans kind of like this guy and never gives up.
Masada got caught being a little cute going up top and found himself stuck in a tree of woe. Not a good place to be with light tubes scattered around the ring. Jack tried to finish things off by planting Masada down onto his neck, but it wouldn't be enough. So now it was time for Thumbtack Jack to bust out some needles and shove them into Masada's skull. But he would get a taste of his own medicine when Masada pulled out, the skewers. But I will say he did get it a little worse with this brainbuster. Okay, pro tip time. You may want to look away for just a second because we would get an up close and personal look of Masada driving a syringe through the cheeks of Jack. I'm talking in one side and out the other, but yes, Masada would also get that same treatment. After all of this mayhem, these guys were still going 100 miles per hour, ripping each other's faces off. It would take a combo of a German suplex followed up with Jack's cross-legged Michinoku driver to eventually keep Masada down for a 3 count. Holy cow, guys. Phenomenal match here. These two guys tore the house down, and the crowd showed them a ton of love. But there it is, people. Thumbtack Jack is the definitive Tournament of Death winner from 2009. Sure, TOD8 has an asterisk next to his name, but there is no doubt about it. He earned that trophy at TOD Rewind. Now, that was a very good tournament, in my opinion. One of CZW's, believe it or not, better Tournament of Deaths. I know this wasn't numbered, but if this was a mainline tournament, I think this would have ranked very high. I haven't really thought about where it would place in my other video, but I would guess top 5, if not maybe top 3. I love this tournament. The main event, phenomenal. Masada bursting onto the scene in CZW. Thumbtack Jack, they beat the hell out of each other. It was an amazing match. A lot of the other matches on the card, Zandig Gage, pretty memorable for their last ever match. It wasn't, it wasn't the greatest match of the year of all time, but that boot scrape, the face wash, brutal stuff. If I had to name a, weakest match on the card, it probably was Brain Damage and Masada. Remember how I just said that it was Brain Damage's, he was in his prime in 2007. In 2009, he wasn't bad, of course, I wouldn't say that, but he wasn't in his prime at that point. He was a little bit on a little downward trajectory there, and I don't think he really carried on a good match with Masada. Masada really blew me away when I first saw this. I was like, this guy is awesome. And then you got the whole story between Sami Callihan and Danny Havoc. Those guys have a very storied past. Who knows? Maybe one day here on the channel, we'll break down their epic feud, which had one of the better Cage of Death matches of all time. I'm going to plug it too. If you want to hear and see the Cage of Death matches all ranked, it's already on the channel. Another massive video with a ton of crazy work went into it. Please go watch it. Share it if you can. I really, really love this tournament. I think it's a no-brainer. If at the end of the day, you got to pick which one's better, in my opinion, I'm going with Rewind all day, every day. But I think TOD Fast Forward had its fun elements too, because who would have thought Danny Havoc in the future, not Danny Havoc, Danny DeMonto in the future would end up running one of the top deathmatch companies out there, at least in, the 2020s. So really cool stuff to look back on in history and see these things. But I want to know what you guys thought was the most interesting developments out of both of these tournaments. What matches you liked, what matches you didn't like. And I also want to hear what other old school deathmatch archive stuff you want to see. I see the stuff out there. I know you guys want to see, you know, Carnage Cup ranked and, you know, King of the Death Matches, for the love of God, ranked. And yes, I did do Tournament of Death, but that took me a whole year to do. So, I think Masters of Pain, definitely doable. A lot smaller portion there. I have no doubts that that will probably show up on the channel here at some point. I would not bet against that. Maybe one day I can get the King of the Death Matches, Carnage Cup, because there's a lot of people requesting that. I do see it out there. But as far as matches maybe, or smaller tournaments that you maybe haven't, you know, heard a lot about, like Lord of Anarchy, the whole Lord of Anarchy video. If you haven't seen that, I covered Lord of Anarchy, Vicious Outcast Wrestling. Go check that video out if you haven't. But stuff like that I've never seen before, maybe you haven't seen it, or you haven't seen anybody talk about it, let me know down below and I'll check it out and might be in a video. But as for right now, the best thing you can do for Jobber Radio is spread the word. I mean, you can like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, but spreading the word, you know, dropping a couple links here and there, show your friends, you know, some crazy deathmatch wrestling. Easily the best thing you can do for Jobber Radio. It helps me out a ton. It helps me do this little hobby that I have. So I would appreciate that quite a bit. But if you want to support deathmatch wrestling, you want to support CZW and all of these wrestlers that bust their ass and do ungodly things to each other, hit up Smart Mark Video, IWTV, Triller, you know, all that, you know, Title Network TV, whatever the hell, Title Match Network, there it is. Don't be a dick. Don't be a pirate. Pay the ones to do what we all love. Please. Okay? Please. Don't be a pirate. But that's it. I'm getting out of here. I hope you guys stuck all the way through. It means a lot. And I'll see you on the next video.